Hello everyone. Today I'd like to discuss some of the improvements in Revit 2022 with regards to project parameters. Project parameters used to give us a bit of a headache. We didn't used to be able to sort them alphabetically, and if one used long project parameter definitions, they wouldn't even be visible so much. So while the differentiation happened towards the end of the parameter name, it became quite tricky to handle. So after a idea that was created, and you can see now 600 people have voted for it, Autodesk has designed Revit so that the project parameters can be better maintained. Now, to give you an idea about why this would be important is if you look at something like your BIM interoperability tools. Two things of importance here. The one is the COBie parameters, which we use for facilities management. So those companies that have adopted Revit for facilities management, they typically use COBie. And once one has accepted the COBie setup, you can see how it's loading and creating those parameters. In this case, in this project, the parameters are already in existence. Clicking on an item, you'll see that there are many or some instance parameters, as well as type parameters, which then contains COBie information. So COBie.type dot, COBie.type dot, classification dot, unicast dot, say PR, and so on and so forth. Depending on what you do, you might have a lot of project parameters. If you do assign other codes as well, you can set up your codes within your BIM interoperability tool. I typically use the Unit Class 2015. And once again, once you assign those parameters, you'll find that the elements to which you assign them will have those parameters, all of the elements. That allows us classification, and that has further implications down the supply chain so that we can do quantification and, like I said, facilities management. So it's very important to apply standards to the project, and typically any information that you add to the project, so if, for argument's sake, if there is a component and you want that component serviced, and you see that in the information there's nothing here that says that you must service that component on a specific date or when it was serviced, then you would go to the project parameters and add that parameter to the project. And when I opened the latest edition of Revit up, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that we can now not only see the parameters listed alphabetically, but we're also able to filter them based on parameter type. So whether it's a project parameter or a shared parameter, you can see. And then also the discipline that it is in. So in other words, what was the definition? Was it for HVAC, in which case it would be something like airflow? Or was it just a common parameter, which is simply something like text? In this case, most of the elements in here have shared parameters with text. And then also, what is the value type? So it's actually quite simple, and it's great to use. You can manipulate them over here, and then if you do want to add a parameter, you can still enter the usual dialog, the usual interface parameter properties, where you can go and add some of the parameter either as a shared parameter or as a project parameter, instance or type, and from here on you can assign it to whichever category you would like. So some parameter, let's suppose it's a common let's say required airflow. Let's see if we can create an HVAC airflow parameter. We're going to make it an instance parameter, and we're going to say that the values are aligned per group type. No, the values can vary per group instance. In other words, we can assign parameters in different groups if we create the same sort of layout, and then we would assign that, say, to air terminals. There's our air terminals, and if we have an air terminal now, we'll find that the required airflow will be listed under, and then we can choose where we want to list it under. So mechanical flow would make sense. We say OK, we add that to the project, and then we say OK. So whenever we've got an airflow component, and we place that air terminal, say for argument's sake, there's a supply diffuser, I'm going to put that component in there. Then we'll see that that component now has that information under the mechanical flow. There is the required airflow, and we can enter that as a value. And let's suppose that they're the same. And there we can see that we can now add that required airflow. So it's not the actual flow that comes through the diffuser, it's the required airflow. And if they're equal, of course, then you meet the requirements for the design. But it's a wonderful situation now that we can manipulate using a filter, and so that we can even take out and say, look, this is a project parameter, it's a mechanical parameter or an HVAC parameter, and then we can see the required airflow. It's very easy to find. Modifying it, it's not that simple, of course. You have to recreate the parameter if you created it incorrectly in the first instance, but you can at the very least group it under a different heading in the properties. And this is a great advancement in Revit, and very glad that Autodesk implemented it, and I'm sure you are also looking forward to using that filter interface when you are starting to use Revit 2022. So there's something great to look forward to. And again, if you need help manipulating your projects using project parameters, or even if you want to do some BIM interoperability using your shared parameters that are set up with this, or your room book and area book, or even some shared parameters that you create yourself, please contact Micrographics and we can help you with that. And I hope you enjoy Revit 2022. Until next time, goodbye.